Okay, trustees, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. Go for it.
Okay, I'd like to open the East Hampton Town Trustee meeting for this evening. We'll start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Allison, could you do roll call?
Absolutely. John Aldred,
Here.
Francis Bach, David Cataletto,
Here.
Ben Dollinger,
Here.
Tim Garneau, Jim Grimes,
Here.
Susan McGraw-Keeber, Mike Martinson,
Here.
Bill Taylor.
Here. Okay, I'd like to start with public comment, and I believe we have Bob Timon. And are you speaking, Bob, or the students?
The students will be speaking.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great. So if you guys could step up.
Wait, our flash is over there.
Nobody sent me this.
Oh,
Bob said you were
obviously,
sending it to
we
me.
don't have a slideshow.
You did send it to me.
You didn't send it?
I thought I sent it in my paper.
I get it.
If you have a flash drive, I'll put it in right here.
Yeah, we can have it. Oh, I shut my phone off. Do you have it? I think it's under my name.
It's okay. Put it back down. I think we will get your email address. It's easier to access.
There you go.
Oh, that's not it. It says Sky Cancer and a Cooper underneath.
Sky,
Yeah.
why don't you log right in there? Check.
Oh, I can do that. Do you want me to just log in?
You do it, yeah.
Oh, how about this?
Yeah,
That's
that's
what you
it.
need to do.
Okay.
Do you want to, can you log in on the website?
Or
You
you
can
can
share it
just
to some
email.
sort of, or you can email it, either one,
Sure.
whichever you want to do.
I'll email it.
Yeah.
What's your email? Yep.
Let's go AFO.
Was it clean? We tried to clean it.
One.
You got it. It's still, I didn't pick it up yet.
At gmail.com.
I was offshore until yesterday. Oh, yeah. I was offshore.
Want to kick around the scallop season a little bit while they're getting ready?
Does anybody know whether there
Well,
was a
the
scholarship?
question came up, there's been some inquiries to the office about what the season's going to be. We have to make a decision whether we want, the season in state waters starts the first Monday of November.
We usually do a week after.
A week or 2 weeks. We've done both, I believe. So we have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Which one we want. We can put a resolution together for the next meeting and get it in the clerk's office and the newspaper in time for either 1 week or 2 weeks.
More detail. Can you look in to see what basically the prospects are out there?
Yeah, I can look into that.
Yeah.
I can get to do a little process.
Yeah, looking around, see,
I spoke to Tim,
Front of the mic or?
he
Oh, where
would
is it?
favor 1 week because his concern is with the poaching window for town waters. When the state's open and the
and
town's
the town is not, and we haven't had any trouble with poaching this year.
We haven't had scholars.
Yeah, correct, everything else.
I always thought that the town should wait until Christmas. We should open the scallop season like just before Christmas. Let the state dry out.
That's what we were talking, John and I were talking about today.
Well, the only problem, I think the only thing John said, police.
Trying to police it once it's open.
And we used to, if there's a lot of work.
How we doing?
We're good.
You're all good? You're ready? Well, listen, I'm sorry. Bill. Let's,
All right.
welcome.
Hello, I'm Sky Tansman and this is Nick Cooper.
Hi.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're ready to get started. So, waiting on the presentation? Perfect, thank you. So we are here today to discuss the implementation of our first oyster reef, which was constructed on September 19th with the help of the entire 6th grade Springs class, and our hopeful new implementation with 2 more reefs this spring in Accabonac Harbor.
So just a bit of background on the South Fork Sea Farmers. Our goal is to our mission is to educate and raise awareness of the importance of marine aquaculture and to inspire other programs and local conservation acts to take action and improve our local environment. And we work hand in hand with the East Hampton Shellfish Hatchery. So we'd like to thank them for their location and their help while we're working to nurture growing oyster spat.
So what exactly does an oyster reef do in terms of helping Accabonac Harbor? Well, as I'm sure you know, there is a eutrophication problem, which is where excess nitrogen and phosphorus enter the water system and algal blooms occur because of it. And there's also a problem with excessive E. coli. So with the oysters, which foster the ability to filter up to 50 gallons of water a day, will hopefully mitigate that in terms of cleaning out our polluted water columns. You can imagine if one oyster can filter 50 gallons, an entire reef will have an immense, profound impact.
Another benefit of implementing oyster reefs would be preventing erosion. So when oyster reefs are arranged in a community known as an oyster reef, they can potentially reduce and absorb the impact of waves on the shoreline, potentially reducing erosion and also potentially reclaiming some land that has been lost to rising sea levels and storm surges and other damaging natural conditions that have occurred in East Hampton.
So to discuss our most recent reef, the reef itself is constructed of 5 rows of bags. So on the bottom, there are just blank shells within these biodegradable bags made of cellulose. So the bottom layer, blank, there's no spat on shell or oyster larvae on them. And then on the top 2 rows, placed kind of like a pyramid, there are developing spat on them. In terms of where we decided to place the reefs, it needs to be in a place as far back into the harbor as possible because that's where the water is least flushed out and where it's most polluted, hence why shell fishing is banned in certain areas of the harbor. And also because the second factor in determining location is the bottom itself cannot be soft or else the reef will sink in, suffocating the oysters, preventing them from filtering the water. So it does need to be a hard bottom that we searched for and found.
So we also thought it was important to get the community involved when building this oyster reef. So as Sky previously said, we worked with the spring 6th graders when implementing our first oyster reef, and hopefully if we're able to do some future reefs, we would get the Bridgehampton School District and the John Marshall School District in. And I think that's really important because we need to get our future generation involved and get them aware of our local environmental problems and how to solve them.
So as I said before, the primary factor in determining location for the reefs are to set them far back as possible away from the inlet. So that's where the most polluted water would need to be mitigated along with the hard bottom.
So reef number 2 would be the reef that I would be the primary caretaker of. So this reef is on the shoreline in front of 113 Louse Point Road. So it's on the Amagansett side of Accabonac Harbor. This site was identified to have a significant erosion problem. So the location of the reef could be placed tight to the shoreline and prevent further erosion and also potentially reclaim some of the land of the homeowner shown in the image. Placement of the reef will be discussed with the homeowner. We've actually contacted them, but the house is currently being sold. So we're in the process of contacting the new owner and getting their approval. But so far they seem pretty on board with the idea of implementing an oyster reef.
Do you need their approval to do it?
No.
No.
Put them to consider.
Yeah, we were told it was a good idea to do.
Yeah, because this is on our bottom. We're the title holders to it, so it's really entirely up to us. Hey, question I have. You describe yourself as a primary caretaker here. Is there some sort of ongoing maintenance that's required of these oyster reefs, or do they sort of thrive and flourish and produce continually on their own? Or is there some structural degradation of the bag system or that over time?
Yeah, so actually, the bags we're using to hold the oysters with the oyster spat on the shell is a biodegradable bag that Dr. T-Man actually found, and we're using those, and they're made of cellulose. So they'll degrade in about 1 to 2 years. So virtually, we're hoping to leave no impact on the local environment. And we're hoping that it's going to be pretty hands-off. We're hoping that it's going to be able to thrive without the help of us. But for now, we're going to need to do maintenance with making sure that we put hemp twine on the bags to make sure that they don't separate from one another. And we want to make sure that that's going good and that bags of oysters are still arranged in the way that we want them to. So it would be pretty hands-off, but it's still important that we keep looking at this oyster reef and making sure that it's working as it should be.
Yeah, the reefs are,
You're going to be observing it to see how they do also, right?
yes.
The caretaking will be monitoring mostly and, measuring the spat. We have baseline spat measurements already. We want to see how it grows. And the big thing we want to find is natural set. So we want to monitor for natural set because that will mean we actually have a naturally growing oyster. So that's probably the most important thing to look for.
So are there stakes, are there anchors at all along
No,
the
we
bag
originally
system?
were going to put stakes, and then honestly, the state asked so many questions about the stakes and how long they were going to take to degrade. And we just took that off, and I think it's going to be fine, especially the second and third one are going to be really differently arranged because they're going to be tight against the shoreline to prevent erosion. The one we put in last week is out in the middle, about 20 yards offshore. So these are going to be tight in. I don't think we're going to need, in other words, any action is going to be pushing them further into the.
Yeah, well, the spot that you selected, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with that area, and there's been quite a loss of that natural shingle over the years there, so.
I'm actually thinking if we shape it properly with tight against and maybe with some little eyes, open, we might even be able to get some, when they were saying reclaim, I think if we shape it right, we might be able to get
Some of the
reclamation.
to recruit into the areas.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah, so just to summarize all that, I would say the reefs are definitely self-sustainable, but the monitoring that we're doing is just tracking the growth of the spat themselves. And the only potential maintenance that I could think of is if the reef somehow, a natural storm, would take it apart, and we want it to stay in that straight line to reclaim the shoreline and how the waves are bringing in the sand and such.
Yeah. Hey, what grade are you guys
I'm in 12th grade.
And I'm a junior.
Okay, I want to ask a question. Post this work that you've done, have you guys thought this out as sort of a legacy as a future class taking over this project and continuing it on?
I'll start. As a 12th grader, because I am going to college, Nick and I have discussed him potentially taking partial care of my reef, but I'm also president of the Environmental Awareness Club of my school, so I'm hoping to get those members involved, and of course there are always new students coming in, to have it kind of a club project to take care of the reef.
That's great.
I have one more just kind of thing for people to think about. So we don't really see a natural wild set of shellfish in the way that we have or we used to see, going back many decades. And, when you ask yourself why we don't see wild sets occurring, we see some oysters here and there, some scallops and clams thanks to the hatchery, but we don't see a wild set coming. And I think, having worked as a bayman my whole life, I think I might be onto something, and I've suggested this to a few people in the past. But I think that it's my understanding that the juvenile oyster, that's the first microscopic oyster called a veliger, similar to our zygote, it swims in the water for about 19 days before it sets. That's the wild set that you're looking for to see pure success. So evolutionarily and genetically, in the way that these reefs grow in order to do all these great functions that you've described, the oysters are kind of genetically programmed to seek calcium to set on. Having a semi-barren landscape, there's no calcium for the oyster to recognize in a veliger state to set on. So putting this in is a great, very big thumbs up. But what if that shell is coated with microalgae and the veliger can't recognize even the shell that you have in the water? And I kind of think that there might be either an invasive algae, microalgae, or some kind of coating that's in the waters that probably appeared in the late 70s, maybe mid 80s. And so that veliger that seeks calcium ends up setting on a blade of grass or a block of wood or anything it can, because it doesn't find the calcium it's looking for. Just something to stew around with in your worlds.
I think Barley would be much better at answering the question. But we did, remember that picture you took the other day of the natural
Excuse me one
set?
second. This is LTV. Bob, can you please come up to the podium?
Sorry. The other day when we were out there tightening up the existing reef, we did notice an oyster sticking out that was set on a mussel shell. Oh, it was a rock?
It was just.
Because we stopped and took a picture. And when we were out doing the reef, Barley had actually found one natural set on the shoreline there, a mussel that was probably a good 2.5, maybe 3 inches. So it does happen, and it may be more difficult now because of what you said.
It should happen on trillions of oysters, not one.
But that's one of the reasons, and I agree, it's definitely not happening in the scale that it used to. But the reason to have the 3 very separate reefs that we're hoping for is that they're going to spawn at about the same time, depending on temperature. And we need a mix of billions of those larvae to get any kind of set on these small little reefs.
Before I lose this one train of thought, it was a suggestion I had in my mind for you guys. I think that placing the shell in the water now could be a mistake, and that placing the shell in the water at the end of June, just before the spawn happens in the wild, which is generally the first week of July, could be a little bit different than that. But I think if you place your shell reefs during different times of the year, just to see if maybe there is something that coats it during the winter or the fall, maybe something coats it in the spring, maybe there is nothing. Maybe, but I believe that the sooner you have dry, clean shell, the closer you put that dry, clean shell in the water to the spawning event, the better chances you're going to have of success.
Well,
I think that would be easily testable.
yeah, that's a pretty easy control.
And our goal is to get by June next year. I mean, it might be unreachable because the state is a slow process, but that is the goal.
But hang on, you've got OUDC permits in place on your first reef. Is there anything that prevents you from, let's say, adding on to that reef with fresh, clean shell, approaching the spawning time to maybe, you put in something proximate to your spawning oysters? I mean, if you're going to get set, it would be logical to see that occurring.
Barley and I spoke the other day after we looked at the reef, which I thought I put in a nice straight line. Kind of has a little bit of an S to it. But if we took a piece of that S, because it came up, we can do 50 square yards. The reef we put in is about 40 square yards. So even just with what's permitted now, we could probably make an I into that S and fill the middle of that I with shell, giving a more area for possible set. And that's one of the things Barley and I were talking about the other day.
And the shell could go in at a different time of year.
We could put that shell in later.
You could try different times at different ends of the reef.
I just know, like with mussel farming, my wife's got relatives that are mussel farmers, and I was amazed at how stupid and easy it is, because all they're really doing is putting those roll racks and surrounding them with basically mature mussels coming up on the set. And They just
Yeah, well, that's how they,
basically plant themselves.
And it kind of, if we do this right, the more oysters we get, the more of the microalgae is going to be filtered out of the water and eaten by the oysters, which is going to make it better for them to set. If we get to that spot
Get it moving in the
where
right
it
direction.
starts moving in the right direction, we actually might make an impact.
But I don't know, you're talking about this microalgae. I don't know shit about oysters, okay? I keep bees though. You get hive beetle in a hive. Hive beetle larvae, once they have sort of slimed a portion of your frames, bees will build on that. They'll avoid it like the plague. So, I mean, it does happen.
yeah.
And I don't know what stuff they secrete behind them through their feeding, but whatever it is, the bees are averse to it, and they're averse to it for a very long time after the hive beetle are gone.
You're planning on monitoring all these things and observing them? You can,
Yes.
the shells that have been in there for a year, looking at them under a microscope, like,
We've got specific areas of the reef we put in that we're going to be monitoring with, they have no spat on shell yet. So we have a nice blank section.
and do you have a source for additional shells and stuff?
Yeah, barley.
Barley, okay.
You know, to test just whether spat are forming, the larvae are setting, you don't necessarily need a massive amount of shell. You could just do small spat collecting units made out of oyster shell placed around the reef. You could even do it weekly, monthly,
Yeah.
over a period of
Yeah,
time.
that's what
They've done that with corals.
that's what the interns going to be doing this year on the reef that's already in. They're going to be monitoring it for growth. And they're just going to be going back to the same, 2 square feet and checking all the time for any kind of growth.
This sounds like a great thing.
Hey, nice job, guys.
Yeah. It has great possibilities. And
Where are you with your permitting on your other 2 projects?
we've been waiting for the okay from you guys to go ahead with everything else. Because one of the things they're asking, are you, for all the
Are
local.
we behind it? I suppose, didn't we vote on that?
We discussed.
We discussed. Are you looking for us to have a vote on that?
Yes, because as soon as that happens, we can move forward with the other agencies.
Is somebody here willing to put a motion forward on Oyster Ranch number 2 and 3?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. A second, approve those. Nicholas, we cut you off. Are you guys done with your presentation?
No, I think the site of the other reef was the only piece, right?
Yeah, that was it.
And
Yeah.
maybe just to elaborate on the monitoring part, Nick and I are enrolled in a methods and research course at our school, so we each have our own research projects, and mine is actually encompassing the entire monitoring of the reef. So I'm taking monthly pH and temperature checks, and I'm also going to be tracking solute concentrations within the water column to see what exactly the oyster reef is doing in terms of filtration, at what rate, et cetera. And then we've also spoken about putting a GoPro down there to track all of the potential species that the reef is going to foster, because it's not just filtering the water, but it's providing habitat for a multitude of species, fish, crabs, etc. So it'll be super interesting to see what critters pop up as a result of our work.
You know what, the best time to do that, it's gonna be nighttime. And if you ever want to do photographs, I do a lot of underwater photography. I'd be more than happy to help you with the equipment. And I'm
Definitely.
set for close-up stuff,
Yeah, we were
That would be
planning
great,
on
thank
putting
you.
2 GoPros for an hour or 2 in 2 different spots, one near the reef, one 50 yards away, and using that for comparison.
The hot tag. Sounds great.
Yeah.
So we make a motion and we're all in favor?
We have,
I got a motion, we got a motion, we got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
It's a great project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The only thing I would ask that perhaps we condition this on is one, the acquiescence of the adjacent property owners. And that we have the opportunity to basically vet these locations beforehand, kind of like we did with the other.
And
So-
some of the trustees have been out at the locations.
Okay, it's something that'll certainly do what we do, maybe some need to tweak it just a little bit.
Yeah, we actually, last time we had to shift the location, and that might happen again this time.
Yeah.
But at this point now, we can start moving heavily the paperwork.
Well, thanks a lot.
I just wouldn't want that to be.
There seems to be a lot of these projects going on. Are you
What's that?
coordinating
I just
with
wouldn't
them?
want to be that condition to be.
I wouldn't make that necessarily, I'm gonna phrase that in a way that the adjacent property owner does have some input here.
Right.
But no, I would not like to have you guys future these things hinge on a property owner, let's say, that doesn't have a vision. Because at the end of the day, it's on our property.
It's on our property. We'd like to be
And it's a beautiful vision.
neighborly.
Yeah, it really makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, we are working with the Aquaponic Protection Committee and their projects, and yes.
Yeah, the sorts of things seem to be taken up different parts of the island, all over the place. So.
Yeah, you see a little bit more about it in the papers now, and you know what, it's a logical step to try to bring the harbors back to what they used to be.
Yeah, these guys presented at the Aquaponic Protection.
So it was a good presentation, yeah.
And they also presented at the town board.
All right, hey, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Are there any other folks here for public comment before we move on?
They're just my students, I'm just supporting them.
Yeah, I think you're doing a good job. All right, new business, which I believe we just took care of. Old business, do we have anything that somebody wants to bring up on old business? Good. Let's move on. Committee reports. John, the South Warwick Wind Elementary Trolls, you've probably been closer to that than anybody.
They had an informational meeting a week ago or so. And Cornell and Stony Brook presented a review of the first year of data. And I've got the PowerPoint, so I thought I'd go through them quickly and maybe just dwell on one or two slides in each.
Which one would you like first? Okay, I've got the telemetry one up, so I'll.
So this is the telemetry project, acoustic telemetry. Stony Brook is doing this. Monmouth University. Okay, you can go next.
Next slide.
Go ahead, next one. Go. This is just some background on EMFs and the state of the cables and the protection the cables offer.
Yeah, I think we've all seen this.
Fish that are affected more or less by electromagnetic fields. So, obviously the object of the study is to see if the electromagnetic field from the cable will affect the, will affect the makeup or the movement of fish along the beach. Go back a little to those earlier, right there. Yeah. So this is just some of the tagging they've done, they're doing and have done and are continuing to do on the fish. So next to the receiver setups, Allison. These pictures are, on the left is the original receiver setup, and you'll see there's a fairly large concrete block on the bottom holding this thing down, and the receiver is suspended mid-water. That was the problem that the draggers encountered. If they encountered one of those blocks, it was so big and heavy that it tended to rip the nets. So they replaced those, or they swapped out the arrangement with the receiver setup on the right, which has a much lighter anchor and can be retrieved in a different way. So it still works for retrieving the receivers to swap them out, but the anchoring system is a lot friendlier to a net that might encounter it. Okay, keep going. This is the array setup. There's 3 rows going from the shoreline out to a little past 3 miles. The cable basically skirts the 3-mile line of the New York State jurisdiction line. They wanted to put some receivers beyond the cable just to see if they could detect movement of fish, not only along the shore, but off the shore and past the cable as it parallels the shore. A cluster of receivers in the middle near the shore is a fine array. So movement of fish in a locality can be more finely determined. And, okay, keep going. Next slide. This is hard to see. This is just the number of fish that were tagged, basically. Different species and numbers per species. Okay, go ahead. This is active tags, graph. This is on our website, so if any of...
Yeah, I was gonna say, a lot of this, it's hard to read any of this here. Any members of the public that want to see this a little more closely, they can go to our website.
Okay, next. Keep going. So that's easy. Back to that quickly. Well, they got 1.5 million total detections so far, 700,000 of which were the fish was known. Not only fish that Stony Brook tagged, but also other fish that other institutions have tagged and which is in a database that they know about. So there's about half the fish that they've detected, they're aware of who tagged them and the details of them, and the other half they're not currently aware of them, but there are other databases that they're working with. So that number of 1.5 million, the known identity of 700,000 will rise as they are able to tap the other databases and find out where the tagging originated. Okay. Go past this one. And past this one too. Okay, stop. So there's a series of slides here. We'll just look at this one. This is just, this was from the download of data that they did in April and May this year. The X's represent missing sensors, and the pie chart coloration on the other sensors just give the breakdown of, I believe it's species. It's fish type. So Telios, elasmobranch, that kind of general type of fish. Okay.
John, are those missing because the fishing boats kind of get caught in it? Is that what happens?
They don't know, but they suspect that they got picked up. And there are some, I don't think it's on this chart. Go to the next chart, Allison.
It was part of it that had the buoys that were returned to them, but
Yeah, some of the missing ones were returned and put back. So there's a designation on this chart for ones that are missing, were missing for a period and got returned and redeployed. Okay, go ahead. So this is another type of sensor that gives real-time data. There's 3 of these in the nearshore array. If you remember, the nearshore array was that tight cluster. The position closest to shore, there are 3 of these real-time status buoys. that are linked to satellite communications devices and will give real-time data on fish passing by. So I'm going to talk to Mike Frisk in Stony Brook this week about, he had some questions for us about these. Apparently he's gotten some feedback from some people who are, I'm not sure if they're upset or just questioning about these buoys out there. Okay, go ahead. So these are the different acoustic telemetry areas that are being looked at right now on Long Island. So what's being done off Wainscott is also going to be coordinated with the other areas that are being looked at as well. Okay. This is too hard to read, a project timeline, but the only thing I'd say is that, work will be beginning. This more applies to the trawl survey than the acoustic telemetry, but work will be beginning offshore this winter. So there'll be some, hopefully the trawl survey will be able, the winter trawl survey 2022-23 will be able to be completed before construction work begins in the offshore. Okay.
You know what trawlers will be doing that survey?
Bulldog? That's the Bulldog from Shinnecock, contracted by Cornell to do their surveys. To do the trawl.
Hey, John,
Just loading.
And now we're doing the trawl survey.
He's continuing. He's got.
Oh, I thought you were done.
That's the acoustic telemetry part of the fishery study, and there's also the trawl survey that Cornell is doing.
Okay, sure. Just gonna put it right to you.
Go ahead, keep on. Okay, right there. But this is a trawl survey. There are sensors on the nets to determine, how the net is catching, to put it simply, and how it's operating. The method that they're using is compatible with all the other trawl survey methods being conducted on the East Coast. So there's ability to compare data from place to place. Okay, go ahead. They're collecting environmental data as well during the trawl survey. Go ahead. This is the boat, the Bulldog from Shinnecock. This is just a graph of the trawls that have been done to date. Summer, fall 21, winter 22, spring and summer of 22. So this is the sampling area. The orange hatched area is the test area. And the green hatched area is basically the control area. Go ahead. This just shows the tows that were done in the summer surveys in 21 and 22. And you'll see just they're doing 20-minute tows. The tows are done basically at the discretion of the captain. So they're doing tows in and around the array and also adjacent to the arrays. So sometimes they have to go north-south, sometimes they can go east-west. Okay. And same with the control area. So, right. They process the catches, they summarize the catches. Go to the next abridged species over. This is basically what they've caught to date in pounds of catch. So a lot of scup, squid, dogfish. Okay, go ahead. And this is a graph you can look at on the website of catch distribution by species and season. Keep going. This is just, you can actually show two of those at the same time, maybe. That's just a concentration of catch. The yellow balls, the larger the ball, the greater the catch in that area. So it just shows I think that's summer of 21, summer of 22. Summer of 21, it looks like, they got a better catch ratio inshore. Summer of 22 was a little bit more evenly distributed. The summer of 21, I believe, was done in a little bit earlier than the summer of 22. Go ahead. That's it? Okay. So that's it.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks.
If we can move on to the largest clam contest, then maybe you can give us a very brief update on that.
Sure. So it was a huge success. It was great.
Yeah, it was a huge clam.
Yep, there was a big clam at the biggest one right now, 2.7, I think. We had actually, John's made a couple that were looked bigger and longer, but didn't weigh as much. That was interesting. And we had a little hiccup the week before. We had a nor'easter for about 4 days, and the DEC closed the waters down. So I was surprised we had as many clams as we did. And we extended the clamming period for 2 weeks.
Yeah, they'll be able to clam next week, and then we'll judge the clams. Clams could be brought to the office no later than 4 o'clock Friday, next Friday.
That's the 21st.
And we'll judge them at 4:30. I think, right?
It's gonna be a very simple.
That'll be the judging, the catching and the judging from Accabonac Harbor, Hog Creek, and 3 Mile Harbor.
That will give us every harbor and be planned. And then we'll see what the largest clam is.
Allison, do that list of everything we went through that day.
Yeah, I mean, like 14 gallons of bonnet chowder, 14 gallons of New England chowder, 8 half-sheet trays of clam pies, 15 clam pies from Paul Roman. And then Tim did a bunch of hot dogs and chicken.
I was under 100 hot dogs.
That was hard. Yeah,
It's been a good turn. Yeah.
It was really good. It seems smooth, and we've taken some other notes already about like some things to tweak for next year. But yeah, it was a great day, good weather. Yeah, it was rocking. It was fun.
Good. Yeah. Nice job, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's really.
I was able to be there.
Yeah, we missed you.
I bet you did.
Missed that duck race, Jim.
Yeah. You had the duck race.
We missed it.
Yeah, we missed. You didn't have the duck race. Kids were happy.
Listen, maybe next year we'll have duck race.
I'll wait for next
Jim did the
I'll
duck
show
race
you how to
2
do it,
years ago.
David. I still have the ducks. I still have the ducks. Anyway, hey, while we're doing committee reports, I would like to just touch on Georgia. We've been getting a lot of calls on when the pond's gonna be let. Right now, the pond's pretty high as of Monday. I think it was around 5.3 feet. Water temperature was, I think 60.9 degrees. Some of the baymen have asked to let the waters cool a little bit if possible before we let it, because it tends to hold the bait into the pond. But I think given the height of the water right now, it's getting pretty high. We got that rain last night and stuff. I've looked at it and looks like we're not going to see sort of the right wind conditions or tide conditions until sometime the week of the 24th. So that's where we're at.
Do you want a motion
There's no motion.
Your discretion.
There's no, I don't think we need a motion, right?
We've never done a motion. I mean, we're not really advertising the action now.
So you're gonna.
What we try to do is we try and let it, as close to high tide with a good north wind, and hopefully a good north wind for a couple of days. Otherwise, what typically happens is it heals over pretty easily, and, we do want to get a good flush going there. So
That's the code on.
that's kind of where that's at.
And we have access now, so it looks like they're pretty much done with this.
Well, there may or may not be access there, and we're gonna have to kind of look at this as having sort of an alternative, access, either coming in off of town line or coming off of Georgia.
Well, I went down there the other day.
Georgia is not a good, Georgia, if you come up on high tide, it's not gonna be a good access. Because
The other thing is, the other day, you could go on the beach,
There's a lane open,
it'll leave the lane open.
and then there's
Well,
they're well back from the.
no, but John, the problem is yes, there technically is a lane open. We're backing the trailer down there with a piece of equipment. I'm not sure how the public is necessarily going to handle it, like us blocking that off. It might be better to just walk the machine down the beach, but we're still in discussion about that.
What about the sand?
The sand, no, the sand this year, there will be no bidding for the sand and the dripping. We basically are not going to be doing the dredging this year. We have an arrangement with the wind farm contractor. We have a contract with them. And they will honor last year's bid, which coincidentally was a very good bid. So from a financial standpoint, we're good. And I think as far as need with respect to taking sand out of Georgia, I think we can forego a year without any real impact on the water quality there.
We don't have a lot of choices, but
Well,
the last couple of years, we've gotten really hot spots, I think.
well, you don't have this year, as far as water quality, we were in pretty good shape. They had the algae harvester in there. The pond stayed open a very long time into the season. So, I don't think we really had any incipient blooms or anything in there. So we're in pretty good shape. So anyway, announcements. Does anybody know anything about?
Yeah, I do. So tomorrow is the Amagansett Maritime Festival. So at 9 o'clock, Surf Riders doing a beach cleanup at Atlantic Avenue, starting at the Amagansett Lake Saving Station. It's open to the public. So I'm going to be leading that, and you guys are free. We're going to do a beach cleanup. And then also,
And hey, what time does that start?
9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, Atlantic Avenue, beach cleanup. And then there'll be tours of the Life Saving Station Museum. And also on Wednesday, that same group, Barley and I took out on 3 Mile, and we seeded about 100,000 clams and oysters over in 3 Mile. So that was really neat. The kids had a good time.
Where did you do that?
So when you're almost all the way in, right before it kind of bottles up with 3 Mile Harbor boatyard, just to the right there. There's that like plasma open cove there, and so you see a bunch of oysters. So I was great.
They call it the wire.
That area? Okay. Wow.
Where is that?
It's on the inside of, what's that spit called?
There's like an osprey nest there. It's like across from Gardner's Marina.
As you enter the head of the harbor, at the dolphin there's a big dolphin with a navigation light.
A navigation light there. They put them on the right side of that fence in the harbor.
Yeah, it's a rocky bottom. It's a good place. The clams seem to do well there. A lot of rocks, not the easiest place to dig them, but
Well, it's a good place for them to live to spawning size.
Grow, yeah.
Anybody got anything else? All right, would we like to go to the administrative paying of the bills?
Yeah.
All right, Staples, $17.58 for office supplies. East Hampton Business Service, $81.46 for copies of of some reports and stuff that I've had printed. East Hampton Marina, $173.42 for gas. This is for the pump out boats. Montauk Anglers Club, $627.28 for boat hole bilge pump replacement. And Montauk, that was, the amount, Montauk Marine Basin for $442.56. That was fuel and miscellaneous supplies. Optimum, $167.42. Van Dyke and Hand, $720 for accounting services.
Motion to pay the bill?
I'd like to, yes, anybody want to make a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Who seconded that?
Bill,
Thank you.
or no?
I second.
You
Great,
said,
thank you.
okay, Mike.
So the pump out boats are out.
The pump out boat in Montauk was pulled today, I believe. The pump out boat in 3 Mile Harbor is going to be pulled on Monday. They asked us to keep that boat in for some extra time in 3 Mile because Bob's been working with some of the marinas that are pulling boats. So they've been doing pump outs on that. I dropped the trailer over to 3 Mile today. And Savannah and I dropped the trailer over to Montauk yesterday. Everything's going good there. There are no minutes for us to go over, correct? Okay. And the clerk is not here. And I'm not really the clerk, so there is no report of the clerk. So.
Do we want to have any more discussion about this golf season?
Well, if you'd like,
We're kind of getting
about, I think 5 minutes.
The only choice we have with the scallop season is basically to open it for a week later or 2 weeks later. I think it would be good to have scallop season open by Thanksgiving.
What's the state start date? The 7th of November.
first Monday.
Do you want to make that decision for 2 weeks now?
Well, we don't have to make a decision, but we probably should write up a resolution for the meeting, so,
Well,
we can
why don't we get a
cross
consensus
out
here
the
for
1 week
that?
or the 2 week,
No,
but
no.
read the resolution. We should have a decision before the resolution.
Yes, the only thing is,
I mean, we could use this opportunity, if anybody's listening in, to give us some feedback, so we have some, feeling.
the state waters are very active. You want to leave it open. You want to make it 2 weeks so the guys have 2 weeks to work on the state thing before the town opens. But if it's not going to be too much in the state waters, you might want to just open it a little sooner.
All right, well, listen.
So we always open it on a Sunday so people can, recreational people get the opportunity.
I get the feeling that the state waters are going to be a lot better than last year.
Yeah, if it is, we might want to go for 2 weeks.
That's what I was going to say, is why don't we, the consensus here tonight is to delay it to 2 weeks. We can get the resolution written up, we can vote on it at the last meeting in October. It's all squared away and done.
The only thing is that I think I'd like to put in the resolution which we can send to the town board, the town attorney, everybody in the town, a request to modify the town code, because what's in the town code now is the state opening in October and the town following suit 2 weeks. So the town code should be updated to at least the current state opening date, which is the first week of November.
So that's language that our council can send over to the town. It's not something we can do, it's we're going to request the town.
It's a request.
Yeah.
Just an update.
All right. Well, if we are,
A motion to,
so we want to make a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second. Perfect. Allison, you got that?
I do.
Okay.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.